So like I said, today is all about the psychology behind your web design. So it's not necessarily the how do you put it all together, but how do you want to be thinking about your website, right? So ultimately, your website needs to be the salesperson. That's kind of the way I think about it. We like to think that social media or emails are our salespeople, but actually the one who converts our visitors into paying clients and customers is our website. So taking the time to really make sure that you're creating a smart and well-designed website is going to pay off big time in the long run. So today I want to talk about just the 5 pieces of a website that'll, no matter what platform you're using or what business you have, these are going to appear on all of them. So the first one is the structure and the navigation. So that's everything from the physical kind of wireframe of your pages and of your content to the menu at the top to just how you naturally have set it up for people to walk through your content. The second one is spacing. So that's how are you putting things on your page? Are you giving people enough space to view everything? Is it overcrowded? Is it confusing? The third one is going to be colors. So talking a little bit about color theory and how that should play into your design. And that's also important to know when you're going into your branding. Okay, what are these colors that I'm choosing? Talking and telling about my business. That can be really, really key. The fourth one is typography. So what kind of fonts are you using? How does that play into what people are going to interpret and understand about your business? And then the last one is a call to action. If you guys have been around for a while, which I think most of you have, call to actions like are my thing that I love to kind of harp on, but it really is where you're actually calling people to make a decision, right? And so by the time they get to your website, typically they're closer to that point of making a decision than they were if on your social media or any other format, right? So being able to have really strong call to actions in place is what's going to make your website the thing that drives customers to your business, right? And actually gets them to want to hire or purchase whatever you're offering. So let's dive into that first one, structure and navigation. So it's the visual structure of your website, asking questions like, how will people naturally interact with your website? So think about your ideal client. Is this someone who's typically going to be super structured? Are they typically going to be a little scatterbrained? Are they going to be coming to your website to just kind of leisurely check it out? Or are they like trying to find some information fast? You know, what are these things that people are going to be thinking when they're coming to your site? Often we don't think through those things, right? Even for me, I like to create things that I like. And so I often have to stop and think, okay, who am I really creating this for? Because it's not really for you, it's for your customers, for them to be able to understand who you are, what you do, and why they should hire you. So ask that question, how will people naturally interact with my website? The second question is, does this make sense for your ideal client? Like, what makes sense to them? What words are you using? Are you using jargon that is not within their typical speaking language? Or are you using simplistic language that is not actually conveying the level of authority that you really need to, right? So if I am a doctor who wants to work with other doctors, surgeons, something like that, like there's a level of intellect and conversation and language that they're going to be using that I would want to use on my site to communicate, because that also explains, you know, that I understand what I'm talking about. Whereas if I'm trying to teach high schoolers about biology, I'm not going to use that same level of language. So even thinking through that kind of stuff can be really, really helpful. And then how are your visitors used to navigating a website? So we all typically have an understanding of what we do when we go to a site and how we like work through it all, right? And where all the information we want is going to be. So think through all of those pieces as well. Something that's really interesting is that a lot of people read websites in this Z formation. So they're going to look at the, you know, top left, go to the right, drop to the bottom left, and then go to the right again. So creating your content, knowing that that's kind of where their eye is going to go, naturally putting the most important pieces of your business and what you want them to do in those places is going to be really helpful. So here we see, you know, the logos in the top left, we have the menu at the top right, and then we have a button at the bottom right, which actually kind of sets them apart, which is really cool. And so people are going to look at all of those and go, oh, okay, this is where I'm expecting, you know, something that I want is going to be here. And that's kind of where we like to go. It just makes it really easy for the user. So knowing this helps you to create a really strong landing page or homepage, or like really any page on your website, knowing that that's typically the general movement. And then when they scroll, they're going to do it again, right? So it's every time, how can you help to make it easier for them? So always thinking about your ideal client. The next one I want to talk about is spacing. And I bet you can guess which of these websites is a good example and which one is a poor example of spacing. So the Slack site has plenty of white space without feeling super overly margined, you know? So it's like, okay, I can see where they want me to go. I see the buttons. I understand what they're saying. But essentially, if my brain gets tired of processing the information, my eyes have somewhere to rest in that white space. That's the psychology behind it, is your eyes are able to kind of read and then rest and process. And we do all of this subconsciously, right? So I'm not thinking, oh, let me look at this and like take a minute. It's like, oh, okay, my eyes are just not overwhelmed. Whereas lingscars.com, gosh, it reminds me of those highlight magazines from the doctor's office, right? It's like I could play Where's Waldo in here and find something new every single time. And so not only are there different fonts and different colors and different patterns and like different, so many things, I have no idea where I would want to start clicking to actually find what I would have gone to that website for, right? So creating that space also helps to allow the visitor to know, okay, where can I find the content that I'm looking for? Is this working for me? Do I like that? Like that lingscars.com, you know, kind of makes me tense and a little anxious, like, ooh, that's a lot going on. Whereas Slack kind of relaxes you and says, oh, okay, this is organized, right? And that's what they do. They organize this content to make it easier for you to communicate. So even in the way that you're spacing your content is going to communicate to your visitors something about you and your business. So that seems like kind of a small thing, but can actually have a really big impact. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is colors. So asking questions about how the site makes you feel. Do these colors look good together? What's the first impression? All of these different things. So another, you know, good and bad example. So the one on the left obviously is going to be our good example. They have colors that match, but also kind of stick out, and they're not all just like the prime color, right? There's accents, there's different space, there's intentional and very specific ways that they're using these colors on their site so that it's branded and they can be recognized, but it's not overwhelming. Whereas the site on our right, you could have a rainbow as your branding colors, right? But that is just way too much color, way too bright. I mean, there's different like pinks and purples, like the shades aren't even the same. So there's just way too much going on that I can't even read any of the content. Even if I, you know, blew that thing up to be the entire screen, that would just be way too much going on for my brain to really process. And so when it comes to things like spacing, colors, all those different things, those are also going to be indicators to your visitor's mind whether or not they're going to want to stay, right? So if I opened that web page on the right with the rainbows, oh, I would have clicked out of that so fast, right? They could have the answer to every question of life, but I'm not going to read it because it's way too much for me. Whereas the one on the left is definitely going to be much calmer. I open it and I think, wow, this is really soothing. This is kind of nice. I would enjoy spending some time on this site. And so that even will kind of give your visitors a reason to stick around. So these are questions you should be asking yourself and asking other people. The great thing about web design is it is visual. And so you can also make changes pretty quickly. So if you go to a friend or to a colleague, or better yet to a client, and say, hey, I'm redesigning my website, tell me, how does the site make you feel when you open it? Or what do you think about these colors? Or what's your first impression of my company when you see this site? Those can be really, really helpful, right? So my colors for my business are white, black, and pink, right? And so a lot of times I can pretty much guarantee you most men who come to my site are going to see that pink and just not be interested for whatever reason. That's not always the case, but I do know that. Like, I recognize that having pink as part of my branding does limit me in some ways. The nice thing is I want to work with women. And so having that pink just adds that femininity, and it's kind of a fun and light color. And so it just adds some energy to my brand to make it fun and not super serious while still saying, hey, I'm not a complete, kid. So thinking through these different things can be really helpful, and getting feedback on each of them is also a great way to make sure that you're headed in the right direction, and get info from different people. One person might absolutely hate it while 6 other people absolutely love it. You're just going to take that in, kind of digest it, think about it, and then make your decisions from there, because otherwise you'll just never make everyone happy, right? All right, so that's on colors. Next, let's talk about typography. So your fonts are also really important, and they seem like such a small piece of, like a small detail, but it's what most of our websites are made up of, right? It's going to be words and the fonts that we use. So it's not just making sure that your fonts match, but even whether or not you choose a serif versus sans serif font, right? So typically a serif font is going to be authoritative or old school. That's kind of the connotation there. So if you're really looking to maybe have some kind of scholarly website, or be an expert in something, or if you're going to be working more with an older generation, it may be worth having a serif font as opposed to a sans serif font, because it's going to communicate something different. Whereas a sans serif font is more modern, open, cool, just kind of a little bit more relaxed, right? And so if you are trying to present that attitude, and that kind of brand, that would be great to use there as well. So like, I use sans serif fonts because I'm in digital marketing, and so I want to be seen as modern. I want to be seen as having that authority. So it's not that I don't have authority, but it's a different level, right? It's not from having decades and decades and decades of experience, but having experience that I can then say is most recent and prevalent, and it's this modern kind of fun, cool business. So thinking through those different pieces is really helpful. Like, for example, the New York Times uses a serif font and Apple uses a sans serif font. And those connotations of those businesses are very different, but we trust both of them, right? So thinking about what your ideal client is going to want to see from your fonts even is really, really helpful. All right. Next, let's talk about the call to action. So this one is really important, probably the most important piece of your business and your website, is making sure that you're giving people somewhere to go, telling them, okay, this is what I want you to do. And when you're designing your website, you need to know this ahead of time, right? So if you don't know what you ultimately want someone to do on your website, then you can't tell them. You can't help lead them to the place that you want them to go. So for example, my website, my ultimate goal is always to have someone contact me, ideally to fill out the form that's on my contact page, which is essentially linked to every single button on all of my pages. Is, okay, anywhere it says contact me or reach out or request this, it's always going to go back to that form, because that's connected to my CRM. So even thinking through this whole process of, okay, once they contact you, what is your next step? Do you have a process? Do you have a system that is going to help you to create the right kind of experience for your client? So whether it's selling a product, whether it's selling a service, having that, even post contact or post purchase experience in mind should influence the way that you create your site, because it's going to influence the way that you set everything up. And then thinking through, how are you going to get people to that call to action? How are you going to get them to that link, to that action that you want them to take? Everything from the way that you structure your site, to the words that you use, to the buttons and the colors, like all of these things come together to make your site really effective. And again, you always, always, always want to be thinking about your client, your ideal client, right? So we can't be everything to everyone. And so I have people who come to my website and I'm just not their cup of tea for whatever reason. Sometimes maybe it's not the service they're looking for. Maybe there's something about my brand or about the way that I do business that isn't quite a good match for them. And that's totally fine. Again, it's not that I don't want to work with men. I'm open to working with men, but I really enjoy working with other female entrepreneurs. And so creating that brand around that kind of femininity and choosing even images and colors and fonts that are going to speak more to a woman is going to be like helpful for my brand. So I'm not too worried about what I could be leaving out because I'm focused on who I really want to work with. So keeping that in mind as you're building your website is really important and really helpful. And you can always go in and tweak it, right? So again, this is where having feedback is really great. Having someone go through your whole website and seeing, okay, how do they navigate this? You know, even having them do some commentary like, okay, this is interesting, or all right, I'm not seeing like what I'm looking for. All those different things are really important to think through. So think about how your people are going to be entering your site. Are they coming from social media? Are they going to a landing page? Are they going to be directly searching you in Google? All those different things. Think through the entire process all the way to the end and create your website essentially be a funnel for that. So those are kind of the 5 pieces of every website that you're going to want to create, whether you're using WordPress or Squarespace or Wix or Shopify, whatever it is, those 5 pieces are going to be a big part of it. And so making sure that you're thinking through these and having a plan and utilizing the most strategic parts of your website is really, really important. So I know that's a lot. I feel like we like blew through it all. So I'm going to open it up for questions. If you guys have any questions about web design, please feel free to drop them in the chat or in that Q&A box, and I will make sure to answer them. All right, let's see, we got one. Bridget, does your business help with web design? Yes. So I actually offer web design services for WordPress, Squarespace, and Shopify. Actually currently designing one WordPress, one Squarespace, and one Shopify site, which is super fun. I really enjoyed them, and they're all different businesses. So yeah, I definitely help to actually create the websites, and then I also offer consulting services. So if people have websites that they just need some help with or tweaks, I've also done that, where I just sit down and talk through, okay, here's the site that we're looking at, here's the content. All right, let's tweak this here, let's look at that. So kind of being that sounding board I was talking about. So that's a great question. Yeah, I definitely help with all of those. All right, another one. Okay, Phyllis asks, do you suggest picking 3 colors? Yes, I would say having anywhere from 3 to 5 at the most would be good, mainly because you'll have those 3 main ones with, so if you have 3 colors, you know, you'll have 2 of them that are kind of your main colors essentially with an accent color, or you can have 3 main colors with 2 accent colors. And so I picked 3 partly because I just really felt like that would be easier on me. Gold is kind of like a tan gold. It's kind of like a 4th color for me. So I'd say anywhere from 3 to 5 is good. Anything more than that, I think can just become really hard to coordinate it all, and it makes it harder for it to really look branded, right? So having 3 to 5, it's easy to pick out, okay, that makes sense. Those, like Microsoft is the red, blue, yellow, and green, right? We all know that. And Apple is the silver and white and just that very crisp color. So yeah, I would definitely say 3 colors is a good starting point. And if you really can't decide, you can go up to 5. That's a great question. All right, any more? I know that was a lot of information, so you guys are probably even just processing all of it. Okay, well, as always, and you guys, if you have any questions, we still have 10 minutes technically, so feel free to pop it in either of those boxes as you think of it. But remember, you guys all have free 30-minute sessions with me. So if you want to use that 30 minutes to talk about your website or any of these pieces, feel free to reach out. So you can either email me directly at hannah@westfalldigitalstrategies.com or use the form in the email that I send out afterwards. So definitely feel free to do that. And then a couple announcements. I don't know why it says connect with me. That's interesting. I'll have to fix that. So as always, there's that feedback form. If you'd like to share a review, it'll be included on my website. And then you can always request a topic. The beta testers for my web design course. So I think most of you guys are familiar with that. But if you're not, I am doing a web design course on how to design a website essentially. So I'll take all of the things that I cover in a mini session and like go into it 1,000 times deeper. And so you'll get everything you need to feel confident about creating a website on WordPress, Squarespace, or Shopify. And I'm looking for some beta testers to test it out for me before I launch it in September. And so the deadline to sign up for being a beta tester is August 22nd, and the test will begin on the 24th, and you'll have until the 15th of September to complete it. I believe those are the dates. And so all I ask is for feedback. So anything from this really made sense to this did not make any sense to I don't like this platform, or this price seems really high, or it seems really low, like all of those different things, whatever you think of, that's kind of feedback I'm looking for. And as a beta tester, you get access to that course for free, so you'll never have to pay for it. You'll get 25% off all future courses, which is really exciting. And then you'll also get early access to any future courses as well. So if you're interested, please let me know. You can fill out the form that'll be in that follow-up email, or you can email me directly, again, at hannah@westfalldigitalstrategies.com. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be a blast. And then next week, we're going to talk about how to boost your Google ranking in 2020. So all about SEO, all about increasing that and making sure that you're getting the most out of your organic search. All right, we have one question. Will the course lessons be live or on each beta tester's own time? So that's a great question, Davine. They'll be on each person's own time schedule. And so it'll be on a platform I'm using, Mighty Networks, if you're familiar with it at all. And so it's just like any other online course. It'll actually be even better produced than these webinars. So I'll be filming them, hopefully all of them this weekend actually, at Hera Hub. So I'm really excited about that. And then I'm having an editor put them together so that they are really super strong and professional looking. So there will be like these sessions like on steroids, which is going to be super fun. That's a great question. All right, that is all I have for you guys today. I don't know about you, but this week has been crazy, so it's kind of nice to get 5 minutes extra. Thanks. I'm excited about the course, Davine. So if you guys have any questions at all, as always, please feel free to reach out. And if you know of anyone who you think that would really benefit from these mini sessions, please feel free to invite them to share that link. It's really exciting and fun. I know not everyone can join us at 4:30 on Thursday, so I'm really thankful that you guys show up. It just makes my time more exciting and fun. Yeah, and then, oh, September, by the way, September we're having some guest speakers. So I will be putting up that schedule soon, but we're going to be talking about a lot of really fun and exciting things. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions, always reach out to me. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend and stay safe. All right, bye-bye.